This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Wisdom Podcast, where business owners making mid-five figures or more share their wisdom. It's 6 questions in 9 minutes because transforming possibility leads to reality. So let's get to it. Question number 1. In a few sentences, tell me who you are and what you do, Chris.
Yeah, my name's Chris McIntosh, and I am a Drupal and WordPress developer. It means I build websites for small to medium businesses.
Love it. We're already getting into that terminology. Question number 2. What's the best thing about being in business, Chris?
Well, the best thing really is freedom and responsibility. And a lot of people forget both the second one, which is responsibility, but I really like having that responsibility and the legacy that I could potentially leave for my family and my kids.
I love it. I love it. I definitely love the freedom thing. I talk about it all the time, but I love that you brought responsibility into that. That's amazing. Question number 3. You'll love this one. We hear from other business owners they're getting so much business that the chaos is sometimes causing overwhelm. Tell me your thoughts on that, Chris.
I think the biggest thing with handling lots of business comes down to setting up good systems, whether it's through software or just written notes or just manuals for your team. That's really the big thing, and leveraging all the tools out there and finding the right tools. So,
love it. Question number 4. What other successful business owners like yourself, Chris, should be on the Unlimited Wisdom Podcast?
I think, I don't know if you have Gabe Arnold on yet, but I think he would be a really good addition to the team here, our channel. And there's quite a few others. I'm actually watching another one called, her name is Victoria Gibson. And I'm watching her going into lead generation and Facebook ads and that sort of stuff. And I think she would probably be a good connection.
Love it. Appreciate that. Question number 5. Let's get to the crux of everything here. What piece of wisdom would you share, Chris, with other business owners?
So the big thing I would share from my background is how to go about getting that first website up or rebuilding the website after a challenge, is to sit down and go through what your goals are for the business and model the website based on those goals and what you're trying to communicate with people. So for example, if you're trying to sell a course, then you want to make sure that your website can host that course securely. You want to have features that support engagement with that course so that you can build a community around it and easily grow it. So that's kind of the big thing with the websites. And the other thing is, again, with all technology, is do your homework on all the tools available before you set your mind on one. Because just because a tool is cloud-based and they say, oh, it's $20 a month and you can have all these tools, it might not be the cheapest tool. And same goes for open source. It might be free, but there's a lot of work that can go into it as well if you don't know where you're going.
Love it. So since we have you here, because I know my tribe and the people that are, in my circles, right? Talk to me about open source and give me a little more nugget there about the website, if you would. Just explain open source and non-open source tools, if you would.
Yeah. So what I would say is, so let's put it in terms of housing, right? So let's say you rent an apartment, and renting an apartment would be akin to something like ClickFunnels, right? Where you pay for a service every month and you can use it. As long as you're paying for it, you can stay there, right? You're only allowed to do a certain amount of things to that space. You have to follow their rules. And if they don't like what you're doing in that space, they can always kick you out. Whereas open source is more like owning a house yourself, right? You have a lot more freedom in regards to what you build in that house, what you do with the house, how you remodel it, how you live in that space. And so that's that's kind of a good way of looking at, closed source versus open source.
Love it.
Yep.
I love it. That's a great analogy, because I think, in as we talked about before, people that aren't familiar with tech, that the terminology can be difficult, and even something as simple as that, when you say a word that people don't familiar with, then their mind just kind of shuts off. So I thought that could
Yeah,
be helpful.
definitely.
Whereas
Definitely.
your language is way up here, so that's amazing. Thank you for dropping that. I appreciate that.
Yep. I think that's the other big tip for people is work with someone, a professional who's in IT, who can talk in your language and bring things down in your language, because if they're talking and you can't understand them, then you don't really know what you're getting into.
Yep. Love it. I love it. Vet the people, bet the people, bet the people. It really is all about fit, isn't it? That's amazing.
Yep.
So let's switch gears here and talk about something a little bit more fun for a moment. What's the most fun vacation you ever had, Chris? I'd love to know.
Oh gosh. Probably the most interesting vacation was, it was kind of a working vacation, was to New York City. So I'm from an southern Indiana town, and I, before I got to where I'm at now, which is in the Philippines, I had a small job in New York City, which is actually how I got here. They sent me over here for training their team here, again, to communicate. And so we got to go around and see, the typical New York sites, the Statue of Liberty, Times Square. Actually was staying at an apartment a couple blocks from Times Square. So it was really amazing. So I could walk down there every day on the way to work and just see all the sights. And even though it wasn't really a vacation, it felt like it, because I was like a tourist in New York City, the whole time I was there. So
Love it. I love that. That's awesome. I appreciate you being on, Chris, and I appreciate your time. What's the website, or I usually say or social link, but for you, I'm imagining it's going to be a website where people can actually reach you.
Yeah. So my website is www.wembassy, and I'll spell it out because it's a little bit weird name. WEMBASSY.com. And I also have a Facebook page as well for that company, obviously, and my name as well. And so people can always find me on Facebook or on that website.
Love it. I appreciate that, Chris. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Wisdom Podcast, where business owners making mid-five figures or more share their wisdom globally. Thanks for joining us.